So whether you're aware of it or unaware of it, anyway, the brain is restructuring itself according to the type of experiences that you're having. It reminds me of a study that was done in London on a group of London taxi drivers. Has anybody been to London, by the way? You've all been to London? Have you experienced the taxi system there?
Yes.
Do you know how complex the roads and all the networks are there? Probably for most people who've been in the taxis or just a little bit of experience on the roads there, you'll see just how complex the whole infrastructure is of the city. So one thing about the London taxi drivers is it's a very different kind of situation for them than many other countries, because they have to go through some grueling training just to be certified as London taxi drivers. It takes them about 4 years of tremendous, intense, grinding training, where they will have to memorize all the routes in the whole city. And besides that, they also have to demonstrate their practical experience driving on the road. So a group of scientists studied these brains of the London taxi drivers, and what they found was that the hippocampus of the brain, it's a small area of the brain which is responsible for memory, concentration, analytical capabilities. The hippocampus of the brain was much larger than that of the average person. And that's just simply from the direct experience of just driving down the London streets. So whether you're aware of it or unaware of it, anyway, the physical structure of the brain is restructuring and reorganizing itself as a result of experience. So the only difference is when we're talking about a spiritual process, we're talking about a conscious approach to self-knowledge, to understanding what is the very mechanism of the human being. Not theoretically, not philosophically, not analytically, but through direct experience. And this is so essential, especially today in the world, because I see this happening all over the place. Whether it's politicians, whether it's organized religion, whether it's economic leaders, everywhere in the world they're talking about transforming the social structures in the world. But almost nowhere is it being talked about transformation of the human being himself, of the very consciousness which has created this society, of the consciousness which has created these social structures. So very earlier on, when I was involved in this kind of process, this was a very fundamental question to me, because I saw that regardless of the different belief systems people are carrying in the world, whether they're atheists, whether they believe in God or don't believe in God, whether they're Hindu, Christian, Buddhist, etc., still, regardless of our belief systems, human beings are suffering alike, which means that our belief systems have not managed to truly bring us freedom. So I was inquiring into this, and again, regardless of our belief systems, still there is so much conflict and violence in the world. So I understood from a very young age that there seems to be something about the human being, the human mind itself, which is creating this conflict in the world. So I wanted to investigate into it. One thing that I understood very clearly was what we call the society is largely just a concept we have created, for the sake of convenience, of course. So right now we're all sitting, we're a group of people, but in your individual experience, there's only the experience of the individual. But as a convenience, we say, we're sitting with a group of people. Or if you take a business organization, the business organization has no life of its own. It's only the individual minds working collectively which creates the business organization. Right? So everything that we see in the world is a reflection of what is happening at the level of the human mind. So unless we address problems that exist at the level of the human mind, then we can go on for centuries trying to transform all the social structures in the world, but we are not addressing what is the root cause of our problems. So one thing that I wanted to understand is, I wanted to observe through my own experience, what is it that's going on? So, just sitting down silently, observing the content of my experience, I noticed that there's two aspects that are having a big influence. One is which is referred to in yoga as buddhi. the activity of your intellect. It's the activity of your intellect which is creating so many divisions in your experience. It's only because of your intellect you're able to divide and fragment so many things in the world. You know the difference between the tree, between a frog, between a human being, between a cat, between a worm, between yourself, between the seat in which you are sitting. All of this just because of the activity of your intellect. Now, the activity of the intellect, I've never seen that as a problem, because you're able to just divide things in the world. This is practical. This is very practical in your experience. And it's also essential for your survival in the body. So that cannot be what's causing the problem. Then I observed a little bit more closely, and I saw something else, another aspect of the mind, that amongst all these divisions, there's another aspect of the mind which becomes identified with these divisions. It attaches the idea of I, me, or mine. So experiencing this body, it says, this is my body. Experiencing, just about anything in the world, if you attach the idea of I, me, or mine, then this is where we start to create a certain identity, a certain persona, a certain false entity of an ego. So, seeing this within my own experience, I saw very clearly that all the problems that we are seeing in the world, it's not about what is right or wrong, what's good or bad, what's sin or virtue or any of these things. It's just a power struggle between one person's set of identifications and another person's set of identifications. So, whatever threatens your identity, just about anything, is enough to provoke some violence within you. So if I'm identified as being a Christian and you threaten my identity, I will turn violent. If I'm identified with being an American, a Chinese, a Japanese, just about anything, whatever threatens my identity, that is enough to provoke any kind of violence within you. So unless this is seen and understood at the level of human experience, then we are not really addressing the problems that exist in the world. We're just settling for half-hearted solutions. It's a bit like this ego identification that I'm talking about. It's a bit like a man who was traveling through a forest. He was a great yogi. Getting tired of his travels, he sees a tree. He goes and he sits underneath the tree and quietly closes his eyes, enters deep into meditation. Now in his meditation he has a certain vision of somebody who's in the deepest depth of hell. He becomes curious. What has this guy done which has taken him to the deepest level of hell? You should understand something. In yoga, when we talk about hell, we're not talking about a particular place or something like that. Self-created hell. You've created misery at the level of your mind. That is hell. So seeing this person in the deepest level of hell, he wants to inquire, what is it that he has done which has taken him to the deepest level of hell? So he starts looking into the life of the man, reviewing his story. He sees one day he's walking in the forest, and he's about to step on a spider. But he stopped for a moment. He thought, okay, this spider is not any more or less valuable than any other form of life. It's not as if human life is the very peak of all life. In the eyes of the creation, nothing's more or less valuable. Why should I kill this spider? So just within a few moments in his heart, some compassion had arisen. So he decided not to kill the spider. So the yogi, seeing this, thought, okay, I really don't care how the hell this guy has lived his life, but just for that one act of compassion alone, I think he should be taken out of the depths of hell. So what he did is he created a spider thread. He took the spider thread and put it down into the deepest level of hell. So the guy is sitting there. Finally, he sees the spider thread have come. And he's been sitting in this hell for millions and millions of years. Finally, there appears to be a way out. So he starts climbing the spider thread. And as he was climbing higher and higher, he looked below him. He noticed all kinds of crazy and demented beings also wanting to rise desperately out of hell. So he just simply yelled at them. He said, "Get off, this thread is mine." And in a flash of a moment, once again, he fell down to the deepest level of hell. Much of human suffering is because of this ego identification that I'm talking about. Just see, any kind of suffering that you've experienced in life, it's always been related, directly or indirectly. In fact, I should say always directly. It has always been connected to the ego. That there's this sense of you being a separate, fixed entity, separate from the whole universe, and whatever threatens that sense of self, that is enough to create any kind of violence within you. So, spiritual process, one part of it means is systematically, through a conscious process, entering deeper inwards. And one thing that you discover as you enter deeper inwards within your own being and start to become a little bit more conscious of the things that are happening within you, one thing that will become very clear to you is this sense of ego or this sense of identity is largely a fiction. You know, everything in existence is just a manifestation of one energy, different forms, changing form. We had the tree, we broke down the tree, we made this piece of wood. We burnt up this piece of wood. It became ashes. Again, same energy, different form. So if that's the case with everything in the creation, isn't that the case with your own mind? Is that not the case with your own body? What we see as the mind and body is just a certain appearance, energy manifesting itself in a certain form. So what's the nature of this energy? If this becomes a living reality for you, then everything within you is totally at ease. No conflict is possible. If we can bring this into common human perception, and it's a very delicate kind of situation because unless a human being is willing to explore into himself, you can never force him to look in that direction. So it's not like we can set out a rule or a law tomorrow that says, okay, all of you have to turn inwards. That's not how the human mind works. The human mind is in such a way that if you feel anything is forced upon you, then naturally he feels the desire to reject it. So that's what's so complicated about this, is that social transformation through individual transformation, the individual himself has to be willing to turn inwards. If the willingness is not there, then you can talk all kinds of brilliant logic with him, and it will not be much difference. It will not make much difference. So, if you're willing to inquire into your being, if the willingness is there, then you open the possibility.